Now, South Sudan is the world's youngest nation. Since its secession from Sudan in 2011, the country has been racked by instability. CCTV's Clementine Logan takes a look back at why the country's civil war began and at what cost to South Sudan's people.
South Sudan's civil war erupted in December 2013 after President Salva Kiir accused his ex-Vice President Riek Machar of plotting to overthrow him. Rebel factions then seized control of several regional towns. Thousands were killed. In January, a ceasefire was signed but broken several times. Talks the following month also failed to end the violence that had displaced over 1 million people by April. Then a fugitive, Riek Machar, was charged with treason. In May, United Nations envoy Toby Lanza said the conflict had resulted in the slaughter of thousands and that 5 million were in need of humanitarian aid. A couple of months later, the UN Security Council described the food crisis in South Sudan as the worst in the world. In August, peace talks began in the Ethiopian capital, Addis Ababa. They dragged on for months as the fighting continued. In February 2015, general elections slated for June were called off due to the ongoing conflict. The following month, rebels freed 250 child soldiers following negotiations with UNICEF, which said 12,000 child soldiers were involved in the fighting. Then in August, under threat of UN sanctions, President Salva Kiir signed an internationally mediated peace deal, under which rebel leader Riek Machar would return as vice president. The conflict cost thousands of lives and is thought to have displaced more than 2 million people. Back to you.
Clementine Logan there. Let's get some more insights now on this development, and I'm joined by Ambassador Jimmy Deng Akuachi. He's the Chargé d'Affaires at the Embassy of South Sudan here in Nairobi. He's joining me now live in our studios. Ambassador, thank you. President Salva Kiir has made that decree appointing Riek Machar, the first vice president. What is the government's expectation now on what should happen next?
Thank you for having me. First of all, I want to thank you for having me in your studio. I want to congratulate the Vice President, Dr. Riek Machar, for his appointment as the Vice President of the Republic of South Sudan. Also want to commend our President for his commitment beyond the call of duty to implement the peace that he has signed with Dr. Riek Machar. As a government, with the appointment of Dr. Riek Machar, we are expecting Riek Machar to go to Juba now and support the peace implementation that the government has embarked on. The efforts by the government has to be supported by the SPLM in opposition. And as such, I think the appointment of Dr. Riek Machar is a good news for the people of South Sudan. It is also good news for the region, and I think we need to quickly embark on the implementation of the peace agreement.
Well, Ambassador, that appointment is coming while the process of implementing that peace deal, as you mentioned, is at a stalemate, especially over the creation of the 28 states. Does this appointment make any difference, though, while that stalemate persists?
I don't think so. I think you know about the communique of the IGAD that came out 2 weeks ago, that South Sudan government and the rebels must implement the peace agreement regardless of the outstanding issues. I think Dr. Machar can still report to Juba, assume his duties, and we can go ahead and implement as well as resolve the outstanding issues. So I think it is not a big deal that for us to hold back on an outstanding issues. I think these are internal matters that can be agreed with internally. I think Riek Machar and his group should just come to Juba and we implement the peace agreement.
Well, Ambassador, that peace agreement, though, had spelled out several other steps, including demilitarization of Juba and an amendment of the Constitution. Is it possible now, though, to proceed with the implementation process before these two key milestones are achieved?
Indeed, I would like to say the government is very committed to the full implementation of the peace agreement. Our military have already started moving out of Juba as a part of demilitarization of Juba. Dr. Riek Machar's group are already in Juba and they have seen the progress that has been made. Demilitarization of Juba is a progress that can be done while Dr. Riek Machar and his group are in Juba. So far, the security in Juba has improved. His people are there. He has information on a daily basis about the security situation in Juba. I think the government is committed to demilitarize Juba. We are also waiting for the forces of Dr. Riek Machar to join with our forces together so that we secure Juba. and to be able to implement the peace agreement as signed.
All right, Ambassador Jimmy Deng Makwach is the Charge d'Affaires at the Embassy of South Sudan here in Nairobi.